Hello, Sammy, and hello, YouTube. I'm LordClydeofOMAR. This just so happens to be my first speaking video. The rest of them were all just music videos, and for those of you that subscribe to me, I'm about to make it worth your while. Now, Sammy, I subscribe to Free Thinker, so I think you can guess what kind of religious persuasion I am. Now, he posted a video called The Best YouTube Comedian Ever, SamiZaatari. I think that's how you pronounce it. I'm going to call you Sammy just to irritate you. Now, Free Thinker was right about one thing. You really are the best comedian on YouTube, because I gotta say, your video on this whole Swiss minaret business was a fucking joke. It was like an SNL skit of a Reza Aslan speech. The whole time you talk about it as though Christianity and Islam were the only two religions on earth, and that Switzerland was being turned into the Christian version of Saudi fucking Arabia. Has it ever occurred to you that maybe, just maybe, the problem might be Islam and not everyone else? I mean, it should be pretty obvious by now. From what I can tell, Europe is host to a pretty decent variety of different religious beliefs, and they all seem to be getting along just fine for the most part. The only religion that's having any trouble catching the beat, however, is Islam. Think about it. You don't see European Buddhists or Hindus getting any restrictions slapped on their religious structures or practices. But then again, you also don't see them making death threats over cartoons, or killing people for making movies, or blowing up buses, or talking about how they want to impose their religious law. I guess you also have to consider the fact that their religious monuments aren't designed to symbolize religious supremacy either. More on that in a sec. First, I'm going to address you point by point.
There are churches in the Muslim world. They are continuing to be built, and they're not going anywhere. I've provided a ton of links to churches across and in the Muslim world. I mean, how ignorant are some people? I don't know, maybe it's just me, maybe I'm just naive, and there are some incredibly ignorant people out there. But you know what, that's what we're dealing with, a bunch of ignorant people. So please stop repeating that stupid, ignorant argument.
It's ignorant, you're being ignorant!
Well, one thing we're definitely not ignorant about is Saudi Arabia's policy on the issue, which happens to be the country that most of us who make this argument are referring to, because a significant portion of the new mosques being built in the West these days are Wahhabi mosques funded by the Saudi royal family. These are the people who are demanding that every other country allow them to build as many mosques as they want while not allowing a single church, temple, or even non-Wahhabi mosque to be built anywhere on their own soil. They recently asked the Russian government if they could build yet another one of these architectural eyesores in Moscow. Russia's response was a request that a single Christian Orthodox church be built in Saudi Arabia. After that, the conversation was over. Kudos to Russia. Now, before you start bringing up the Vatican and how they won't allow any mosque to be built within their own city limits, bear in mind that as an atheist, I don't consider Catholicism to be all that much better than Islam. I mean, piss or shit, take your pick. Even so, the Vatican takes up about 0.44 square kilometers of land. By contrast, the city of Mecca alone encompasses 850 square kilometers, and they don't even allow non-Muslims to set foot on it. At least the Vatican lets non-Catholics inside to take pictures and shit. I honestly don't think they have any room left to build any mosques. But if you're going to compare Saudi Arabia's hypocrisy to that, then I don't think I need to press the issue any further.
The reason I don't see this as a bad thing is because step by step, the West is losing its high moral ground. Because think about it. Westerners often like to come to Muslims and say, well, you don't allow churches in the Muslim world. Well, you could say, yeah, and? So what? I'm following what you're doing. You're no longer the example. You're the exact same thing as to what you complain about. It will make a few of them realize and say, hey, wait a minute. We keep saying these things about them, but yet these things are even true about us. And you see, it will make a few of them open their eyes and come to the truth.
What were you trying to prove? That deep down, everyone's exactly as you. You're alone.
Like I mentioned before, Christianity and Islam aren't the only two religions on earth. While the West does allow freedom of religion, the condition is that it must not infringe upon the rights of others, and therein lies the problem. It is not unfair to say that Islam is as much a political ideology as it is a religion. The religious part of it mandates that its followers answer only to its dogma and nothing else. If its rules conflict with secular law, then its followers are to ignore the secular law, at least whenever possible. You can imagine how a situation like this could create some real static. Nowhere was this better manifested than during the Muhammad cartoon controversy. If people say or print something that you feel offends your religious sensibilities, then that's their right. We can't infringe on someone's freedom of speech to serve your religious interests. If your religious dogma mandates that it be given special privilege to override the rights of others, then I'm sorry, but we can't accommodate you. People of other religious faiths have come to accept this policy as fair and just, so this is not a failure of the West. Think about who it is specifically who is banning minarets. This is the Swiss we're talking about here. Among the things the Swiss are known for is their almost cartoonish dedication to neutrality. These people refused to take a side during World War II. It is considered an indispensable feature of their very identity and culture. The fact that the Swiss have taken such a radical stance on such a controversial issue doesn't hurt the Western moral sense in the slightest. If anything, it reinforces the notion that Islam is a threat to Western freedom in ways I never thought possible.
Throughout Europe, as I said, Muslims can't wear the headscarf. They can't cover their face.
Yeah, you know why? Because most Western security systems are based around facial recognition.
And you just got to look around you. Islam is growing. 1 in 5 people on this planet is a Muslim. Soon it will be 2, 3, 4. And all your campaigns will have failed.
Ah, that old chestnut. Hasn't anyone already told you that 6 million people leave Islam every year? 3 out of 4 new converts leave within 5 years. The thing that's causing the increase in the world Muslim population is high birth rates, so don't think for 1 second that your religion is growing in numbers out of merit, because it's not. One thing you might find interesting is the role Islam plays in American prisons. Muslims represent around 1% of the national population and 20% of the prison population. 80% of all religious conversions in prison are to Islam. Now, I'm sure you'll tell me all about how in the UAE, where you live, the crime and prison population are benign thanks to Islam. But I'm willing to be more honest about my country's imperfections. U.S. prisons are home to some of the craziest motherfuckers in the Western world, yet they seem to be the ones who are recognizing the so-called truth of Islam the most. I'll bet you feel proud.
All you have to do is go do a little research. It wouldn't be hard at all.
You know, some of us actually do read our history books, and I just so happen to know for a fact that the first minarets weren't built until 80 years after Muhammad died, so obviously Muhammad did not make them a part of Islam. That was added in later. So much for being free of corruption. Either way, I sure as shit wouldn't want a minaret in my neighborhood. The church bells are already bad enough. The last thing I need is some nutcase yelling Allahu Akbar from the top of some dildo-shaped tower 5 times a day. The temptation to shoot the guy with a pellet rifle from my roof would be too intense. He'd be like, Allahu Akbar!